Thank you, Craig. It sound all right? I don't think I've ever been to Cinema Center, and if the video or the audio or something didn't go out, what time? Well, I'm pleased to be here to speak with TEDx, and I like your theme, Rethink Fort Wayne. And I'll try to give you a little perspective on where we've been and hopefully some ideas of maybe where we're going. I've entitled my brief comments, The Quest for Act 4, and I think that'll be a little more, give you a little more explanation as we go along. Our history in Fort Wayne dates back over 200 years, but the important events in the economy of Fort Wayne started in really the 1830s, and we're really in three phases, but phases or periods sound a little dull, so I called them acts there, and we'll look briefly at each act and try to identify the turning point that led to the next act, and we'll identify some of the leading actors, and also how their leadership and the ideas that came along at the time really made a difference. And finally, we'll kind of look at where we are now and what the possibilities are for the fourth act. During the bicentennial in 1994, there were a number of markers erected at the various entrances to Fort Wayne. Can anybody tell me what's on those markers? Anybody? Founded on the rivers, founded on the rivers. And after the Revolutionary War, the whole area here was dense forests and swamps, and only transportation was by canoes. The Indians recognized the important location on what is now Fort Wayne on the conflux of three rivers, and they built a sizable village here called Kikianga or Miami Town. There, the location was important also because only a short portage away from the fourth river there, which was the Wabash, of course, and that opened up access to the Ohio River, the Mississippi River, and all the way down the Mississippi to New Orleans. So the rivers were the key to the Fort Wayne being located where it is, and that actually led to the first act. Sam Hanna came to Fort Wayne there, which was less than 1,000 people at the time when he was only 22, and after he'd already failed in business over in Ohio. He started a general store, but the land was swampy and with thick forest. People couldn't get in and out to trade at his store. So Hanna, seeing the great success of the Erie Canal, which had just opened in New York, there, went to the Indiana legislature and got them to issue bonds to build a canal. There, the canal went from Toledo, there on Lake Erie, all the way across Ohio to Fort Wayne, which was the highest point on the canal, hence Summit City ever after, and so on, and then all the way across Indiana to Lafayette, and all the way down the west side of Indiana to Evansville. It was the longest canal that was ever conceived and ever built, save one, the long canal in China. There. The rivers were essential to building the canal because you need a source of water to feed the canal. And all along the canal paralleled the Maumee from Toledo to Fort Wayne, and after that it paralleled the Wabash. There were feeder canals at various points to provide water from the river. Why a canal? Rivers are all right for canoes, but because of current, flooding, debris, sandbars, and so on, you need a canal with a tow path there. And 440 miles, it was 80 miles longer than Erie, and as I indicated, one of the longest ever built. Did I mention that Fort Wayne was a village of 1,000 people at the time with this canal? A canal like this would be about like an interstate project today. Canal started in 1832, and for the next 50 years, the whole economy of Fort Wayne was based on the canal. Unfortunately, even before the canal was finished, another mode of transportation came along that was faster and better. It was an omen of the future that in 1855, a thing called a locomotive was brought in on a canal boat in pieces and put back together down on Columbia Street. So even before the canal was finished, there's Evansville, it was outmoded and limited use. Although it lasted another 30 years to 1880s, the turning point really was when that locomotive arrived on a canal boat. The canal, of course, was eventually filled in, and the right-of-way used for the railroad, and that's elevation you see just on the other side of the city county, now known as the Russo Building. And so ended Act 1. The major player in Act 2, again, was Sam Hanna. A little older, a little wiser. There, as soon as apparent that the railroads were going to make the canal a relic of the past, had to move quickly to the railroad companies that out of New York who were building lines from the east to Chicago and made sure those lines came through Fort Wayne. So for the next 50 years, Fort Wayne became one of the major railroad centers of the Midwest, second really only to Altoona, Pennsylvania, as the biggest terminal in the country between New York and Chicago. Over 200 trains a day came through Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne had 3 roundhouses, created substantial employment. The Pensy Roundhouse, that's located where the post office is now, on Clinton's, alone employed over 1,100 people. Some of the best locomotives and the best Pullman cars in the U.S. were built right here in Fort Wayne. But until the elevation was built in 1955, it was difficult to get through Fort Wayne. We didn't live here at the time, but we traveled through here, and waiting 40 minutes for a train was about the norm. Unlike the canal, which went away completely, the railroads, of course, are still very much with us, but they were supplanted as a driver of our economy by Act 3, which of course is manufacturing, making things and products. A lot of this was for the newly emerging automotive industry, which was starting all around the turn of the century. But Act 3 really came to Fort Wayne when International Harvester came in the 1920s. And this was probably the turning point in which the railroads were surpassed as the main driver of our local economy. International Harvester announced from their Chicago office in 1919 that they wanted to construct a new plant to build trucks. And they set up a competition in which 26 cities competed. Most of these were a lot larger cities than Fort Wayne. I mean, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Louisville, and so on. Fort Wayne at the time was only 80,000. Fort Wayne, however, beat out the other 25 cities and landed the truck plant, which was the backbone of the Fort Wayne manufacturing from the 1920s until it left in 1982. The prime actor in attracting International Harvester was Arthur Hall. I don't really remember that name, but he previously founded a little company here called Lincoln Life in 1905. Arthur Hall put together a committee of business people from the Fort Wayne Chamber and raised $1 million in 3 weeks. It would be like raising $20 million today. We had to buy the land, 200 acres. It was given to Harvester and also build all the infrastructure they required. One of the things they required was building 1,000 homes for the workers, which were built. Even more important, the Chamber Committee didn't stop with Harvester, but bought additional land and brought in many more plants, which came to be called the East End Industries, which sustained Fort Wayne all during the Depression and was added significantly to in World War II. Fort Wayne came out of World War II with a very, very strong economy based mainly upon manufacturing. Actually, it was one of the strongest economies in the Midwest. And 30,000 people moved to Fort Wayne in the 50s and 60s, including our family. In hindsight, Act 3, manufacturing, ceased being the major factor, major driver of the economy when the company that led it off, Harvester, pulled the manufacturing out in 1982, almost 30 years ago. Major player in that act was Win Moses, who was the mayor at the time. Fort Wayne bid against Springfield, Ohio, to keep the manufacturing plant here, but Springfield went out and Fort Wayne lost. Harvester pulling out should have been fair warning to us that with competition from Mexico and ultimately the rest of the world, the manufacturing, while still a very major player, may not continue to be the driver of the economy that it had been. Although, if you read this morning's paper, you find that unemployment decreased from 8.2% to 7.3%, led by manufacturing jobs. Many other cities started years ago to change from manufacturing to what is now called the knowledge-based economy and to diversify their economies. Some cities have done better than others. As we know, Indianapolis has been a city that's changed from the old Indy No Place of the 50s and 60s. There, they had a sports strategy which brought in the Colts in the NCAA headquarters and also put emphasis on pharmaceuticals, life science, and they ramped up their convention business. A recent article in Biz Voice magazine put out by the Chamber describes bringing the Colts from Baltimore and attributes this as being the game changer for the Indianapolis economy. One of the people reported in the article indicates that bringing in the Colts more than anything else was the key to Indianapolis moving away from manufacturing and diversifying their economy. And I might add becoming a major nationally known city, and now with the Super Bowl, almost an internationally known city. Other Midwest cities like Columbus, Ohio, and Louisville have also done a number of things to diversify and change from manufacturing to their knowledge-based economy. You might have noted that all three of the prior acts had something to do with transportation. The Canal, the railroads, and basically manufacturing for the transportation industry. And as opposed to one act, our major driver forward, as I indicated before, may be more like several scenes there instead of just one act. Healthcare is bound to be one of these. With the aging population and the orthopedic industry in Warsaw and a lot of suppliers in our area, new hospital buildings at Parkview and Lutheran, Fort Wayne as a major regional health care center is certainly a scene in the next act. Another would be education and workforce training. The Regional Opportunities Council, which grew out of the 2020 Vision Project, has just adopted what they call the Big Goal, which is all about new tech high school, STEM education there. And the Big Goal is now the major emphasis of the collaborative of the economic development organizations. And I was at a state chamber meeting yesterday, and they have just adopted the Big Goal as their #1 project throughout Indiana. The immediate need locally from the Big Goal is to replace the many engineers in our community, particularly at the defense industries like Raytheon, who are all ready for retirement. But the big goal also is to upgrade the workforce in general, because I'm sure you're aware, all jobs now demand so much more skills and training, and it's estimated by 2018 that 60% of the jobs in the U.S. will require some type of training after high school, either an associate degree, 4-year degree, or a certificate of qualifications. And I have a handout here later. We'll have that on the big goal. Higher education is itself a major industry in Fort Wayne now, with all the colleges near record enrollment, IBFW with almost 14,000, expansions at St. Francis, Indiana Tech, and of course Ivy Tech there. And graduate schools, of course, are now entering the picture. 4-year med school at IBFW, new pharmacy school on the Parkview campus, and of course the new law school now, which is just, they had groundbreaking yesterday at Indiana Tech. And of course St. Francis just bought the Scottish Rite downtown, and they're going to bring quite a bit of their arts and sciences to the downtown area. Also, taking a page out of Indianapolis' book as a convention center, we're building a pretty good reputation as a mecca for all types of youth sports. Speece Fieldhouse draws teams and big-time college coaches from all over the country, and I'm sure you're aware that a lot of these teams come from Texas and the West Coast and so on to play here at Speece. The IPF Soccer Showcase has been a big success. The Lutheran Ice Arena out there now, they're going to build, I think it's under construction, a new volleyball complex near the ice arena. So youth sports and travel teams for youth sports is starting to become a big industry all of its own. We can't be too quick to write off manufacturing. They're shifting emphasis from just the making of products to engineering and design. and with some of the actual production taking place elsewhere there, and some of the production is starting to shift back to the U.S. as the labor cost in products is declining. In addition, a new process called a 3D printer, or additive manufacturing, which can create a solid product by building up successive layers of materials, is just starting, and I know 2 or 3 people that are already involved in this, but this offers a possibility of a whole new means of manufacturing. This means, of course, that advanced manufacturing with robots and so on, and the new method I'm talking about is called additive manufacturing. This could be one of the major scenes of our Act 4. And there will be others as we look for our niche in the knowledge-based economy. What we can learn from this brief look at history is that in order to make game-changing moves, it takes bold thinking, and sometimes bold thinking from groups just like this. It also now takes sustained work. For a village of 1,000 people to build a canal all across Indiana and Ohio was not done with a faint heart. Or to beat out 25 other cities to locate Harvester here, or for that matter, to build a new baseball stadium when we had one that wasn't very old. These all took some bold thinking and some good implementation. Like the Colts have been for Indianapolis, I'm hopeful that Parkview Field has been the game changer for downtown Fort Wayne. We see condos in the new Harrison at Parkview Field and in the Anthony Wayne Bank building starting to move, and real estate in general is starting to pick up in the downtown area. As I indicated, the employment just came down almost 1% in the last month or so. I believe we're on the upswing locally, and in a period when things are really starting to happen. Particularly, we have an $80 million legacy fund that we can use to bring about some game changers, and groups like this can come up with some ideas like game changers there. So I encourage each of you to get involved and become a part of developing the next act. Thank you.